Welcome back to the CEO's Grind, where we'll talk real numbers, real leadership, and real results. Today, being Monday, we're diving into three major areas and whatever else Wes and I think about. But of course, we talk Monday weekly numbers. We have a little bit of business development strategies. Um, and we're going to continue touching on something that is always there in the background, roles and responsibilities, right? Defining those as you grow. And then a fun topic that Wes brought up a little earlier. So, Wes, good morning.
Good
Happy
morning.
Monday. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm fantastic, man.
Good.
Fantastic.
Well, how was the weekend?
Amazing. I actually started a project which is a sort of a renovation. It's not sort of it. It is a renovation of one unit that went through fire last winter-ish, right in the cusp there. And I got many quotes, right? This is how much it's gonna be. Insurance company said it's this much, that and I finally figured out what the problem was. I didn't have the right darn electrical professional to go there and tell me exactly how to bring that up to code. And I finally solved that riddle. So that was already incredible savings. And then now we started the cleanup, and within less than 2 weeks, that will be back online without spending all the cash uh, on it.
How do
So
you kill the smoke smell?
you see, there was not that much, but there are processes. Yeah, there are processes, but there was not that much. No, the process being followed. I'm not doing the whole thing, right? I'm just happy that I solved all the little modules that will make so you bring something back online for a fair price. The right way. How was your weekend?
It was somewhat uneventful. I made a really nice roast this weekend. Went to a kids football game, which was a lot of fun yesterday. Visited with my son a bit, so we had a good time. It was a relaxing weekend.
Outstanding, outstanding. Talking about sun, my dad finished his travels. He did, I think it was about 3 weeks, if not a month, through Brazil, going from São Paulo all the way through the East Coast and back around. So all the coastal cities.
Okay.
There you go. So he went there with so he did it with his wife. He stayed in I don't know how many Airbnbs. He has some amazing stories and he has some horror stories. He had his fair share of like booking a spot and say, "Son, I can't be here. I just have to get a hotel." Right. But one thing that he did find out that I thought was pretty interesting that as a Brazilian I did not know was the difference in the tourism, even cost, in these beautiful places that he visited. He was expecting, tourist prices, right? You're at the beach in Brazil, you're going to have the same sort of Rio prices. And it really wasn't. It was much cheaper to do the trip from a day-to-day cost, and even lodging, really, than what was expected. So I thought that to be interesting.
So are you then marketing traveling to Brazil for vacation? If
Ah,
it's
no, Wes,
an,
this is
an affordable vacation down in Brazil, all the cities along the coast.
no, but I will say this from a if I'm giving lifestyle advice, right? If we're talking about lifestyle and you have recently retired, or you're trying to like, research and have some experience in traveling around to see where would I see myself spending the winters, right? Think somebody like you who's in Racine, Wisconsin, and winters are brutal, and you've done that all your life, and you say, okay, I have 5 years till I get to retire. Let me plan my vacations around spots that are interesting and will be affordable to what I will have in the future, right? Because at the end of the day, your retirement can be really fun if you plan accordingly, right? If you are always lived in a huge city, right, and you had the best that life could give you, right, for your income level, but now you're going to retire, and now your income level, you did well, but you only was able to guarantee 75% of what you were bringing. So what's going to happen now? Where are you going to reduce? And you have your dreams, right? So now you should probably adjust your dreams and really think, if I want to have fun in beautiful spots and I don't want to have brutal winters, I don't want to have to go, go up the stairs in traffic and things like that. And you're trying to like, my 5 days to retirement are really important. And for my dad, it was as well, right? And we're moving into a retirement planning kind of thing. But those years are important. And I remember what he was doing, and he wasn't like, I don't think he read anywhere, it's just like how he is. But those 5 years, he was planning, where am I going to be, right? Traveling to those locations, researching, and you know what I mean? So, am I going to spend my summers in Brazil? Am I going to want to go to Europe? How much is it going to cost me? How am I going to adjust that? So those 5 years were incredibly important of saving and all of that. So I would say definitely think about these not so visited locations, even in your neck of the woods, and see where would I buy my retirement home, really? Because you don't need to be where you lived your entire life. You know what I mean? Where you made
Yeah.
money. It doesn't need to be there all the time. So you got to be creative. Talking about weekly numbers and knowing your budget and even budgeting your retirement before you get there. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about it.
So it's really kind of funny is that I've always had these wonderful ideas about retirement, and then yeah, I think I'm going to get a place down in the Carolinas, or I think I'm going to get a place in Florida where it's going to be warm and I'll be a snowbird or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got a girlfriend or a spouse, and they say, "Well, I don't want to leave the kids." I don't. I'm gonna miss the kids. I don't want to move down south because I want to be away from the kids, and that always seems to put a damper on things. I feel. But I've had that with anyone. One I had a relationship before in my life was the partner, whoever that may have been, don't want to leave the kids, and
Well,
that weighs
well,
on me. I don't like it.
well, Wesley, I think then you get back to we'll talk more about that at a different time because then you're talking about alignment, right? I'm assuming there's alignment. So I'm assuming,
There ain't alignment if they don't want to go.
no, I understand, but my assumption, like the example I gave of, Mr. De Silva there was alignment in the goal of how we want to spend retirement, right? So just
Yeah.
I came from that standpoint and planning after you have alignment, not right. So if you don't have alignment, so go back. But assuming you have alignment, now it's you can actually make fun, have fun while prepping and sort of testing what you're gonna do in your retirement before you get there. Imagine if you go and you do all these plans and you buy a house in Florida and you spend I'm sure a lot of people go through that. It's like, oh hell, I hate this. But now they can't get back. You know what I'm saying? So test it out, really try to negotiate 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, that kind of thing. But going back to weekly numbers, we always do this. Did you win last week? Did you, how did building waters go from a number standpoint? How did it
From
go?
building waters went from a number standpoint, we about broke even.
Broke even.
Yeah,
Whoa, in April, huh?
yeah, yeah, a little higher. Well, that may relate to another conversation we're going to have later in the show. So
Okay.
we're going to just leave it at that.
Okay. About broke even. Outstanding. We didn't break even. We made money, which is good. But I was looking, and again, the post-it notes, I was looking at whether if we grew or not. We grew a little bit from the previous week. Yeah, in fact, the highest number in the last 4 weeks, but we haven't the last jump that we made, which was the last week 2 of March, week 3 of March was a big jump, and now we maintained that and grew a little bit. But I was expecting an additional jump already, right? I would expect to be a little bit higher by now. So, but if this is the baseline for May, the beginning of May, we're still tracking okay for the year. Um, I just know we're in the right direction because essentially now is just adding more inventory, right? Like I mentioned at the top of the show, right? Bringing things that were offline. Like I said, I want it ready for the busy season and we're about to start. So that's that. Um, and the other projects here in Cleveland that are picking up. So yeah, so as far as numbers, I thought I was happy. I was a little concerned before this morning when I was going to look, and I'm like, oh no, we are fine. You know what I mean? Like when you look at
Right.
the whole picture. So I'm absolutely happy with that. Um, any bottlenecks or any adjustments that you know you need to make this week that is like a quick hit that you're going to make?
Yeah. And I want to do some price adjustments, but I want to talk about it in the show.
Okay, from where it came from. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Outstanding. So, the other part, right, aside from using my current resources to increase revenue by bringing, you're utilizing your assets and adding doors where you can, so using your existing capacity just to get more out of it. Um, there's also business development, right? So, and the goal is really to kind of um, talk a little bit how we go about our strategies to bring more business to us or to um, explore different avenues. So in your case, I know you're dealing with the franchising thing. How's that going?
we have a meeting after the show today, so I'll know more after today's um show.
Okay. Now, in business, when we talk business development, what do you think about business development? What is
Um,
business development? When we say, "Hey, I'm the VP of business development for Acme Industries," what do you think that person does?
I think they may have their hand in uh, processes, training, um, maybe some sort of a marketing angle,
Hmm.
um, working on things like that, like maybe a campaign of something. Well, that I would think more business development um, is more of improving what you got.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I wish I had the perfect definition of business development. Uh,
Well, we
But
can.
so what I no, it's fine. So what I think of business development, I'll tell you what I think. I think business development as drumming up business for the organization or for the department, right?
Well, wouldn't that be marketing or sales? That's why I didn't go there.
Oh, yeah, but with the way you describe it, it sounded more like continuous improvement. Like it sounded like processes.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. That's the direction I went because I felt that I thought that it wouldn't be defined as business development because that was more marketing and advertising. Or, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, when I think of business development, when I see people with that title, I'm thinking of someone who is closing deals, who is responsible pretty much for the entire relationship, right? From the sort of lead generation, right? As an umbrella, right? The lead generation all the way to the person signed a deal. And now it goes into operations, production, service delivery, whatever. That's what I would think of it. Um, because I think business development isn't just about closing the deal, right? It's planting the seed and doing the whole thing. It's not just, oh, I close deals. No, it's I won't say it's easy to close a deal, but closing a deal, you can close a bad deal. You can close a lopsided deal, right? So business development goes beyond sales. That's why I think it includes more
I'm
than
going to
that.
look up the definition of business development. Are you looking it up too?
Yeah. Oh, can you put something on the screen? Um, Business development, the process of planning for future growth by identifying new opportunities, forming partnerships, and adding value to a company. It involves understanding the target audience, market opportunities, uh, and effective outreach channels to drive success. It may involve objectives around sales, growth, business expansion strategy. And we are on Investopedia, right? So um, all of the activities. Increased profitability impacts every department, including sales, marketing, manufacturing, HR, accounting, finance, product development, and vendor management. Because when you're drumming up business, you're developing business, sometimes you're developing a new product, right? Or in your case, you are developing a new way of delivering your product, which is your franchise, right? I think Eric Kullenberg, when he was our guest, he talked about why was he using franchise to scale his business. He was using the franchise to scale his business as a vehicle to deliver that service and that ability for that investor to use that um, that product to earn revenue. Does it make sense?
What would be the title of the person that is doing business development in your mind?
Director of Business Development is the title. Like,
Would it be would it would it be the general manager? I would assume
okay.
so.
Hold on. Aha. Okay. I love where we're going with this. So what would be the title for a person responsible, right, for business development, correct?
Yeah.
In a fill in the blanks, what kind of company?
Oh, there you go. Law firm.
It's an interesting but I think I think the business development in that case would actually be a role, right? He has the role of developing business, and I believe that he would fall into the arms of like a partner, one of the legal partners, or the partner attorneys that is really responsible, and oftentimes it is especially in consulting firms, the partners, they have the responsibility of drumming up businesses, right, and developing the business. So essentially, when you go into Cogent, for example, that was hired to you, right? So I had the responsibility of developing business, right? So when I did the project with you, my responsibility was to make sure that you got into, there was a package, right, which was a sort of a retainer, the legacy package that then we brought Leslie to be your coach for additional weeks or whatever it was. Remember
Yeah.
that? So that was part of the business development, right? So that's the whole handoff of the lead of the client and trying to get you to continue. So from that standpoint, sometimes business development is a role within a title. So that is the understanding. Sometimes say, "Oh, I need a general manager." Well, general manager is one of the hardest titles to pinpoint because you can be a general manager of an enterprise rental car franchise. You can be the manager of a storage
Dealership.
dealership, storage places, or a Home Depot that makes $50 million in sales per year, right? One little store. Do you see what I'm saying? Different things and different responsibilities. Sometimes a general manager of a Home Depot, if you truly think about it, his role as a business development guy, it's probably more limited than his role as a operations manager guy.
I agree.
Right. So that is the difference of understanding business development as a definition of a concept of what it is an umbrella thing. When you come down to trying to realize how much of that role, what position does that role fit in, right? The person that really sets the tone and drive that and is responsible for making sure that those deliverables of good business development in your organization are achieved and contributed through every step of the process as you have your handoff. So having a company or the ability to do that by design, uh, it is critical for you to be competitive, right, or more competitive. So those are my thoughts on the business development piece of it. How do you do? Who is the responsible person for business development in Building Waters? What does
Man,
that look like?
it's me. I wear all the hats. The way you typed it into Google was the one responsible. You didn't say the one holding the role of developing the business and things like that. You
And I
talked
actually
about,
didn't even read the answer. So let me read the question again and read their answer because I was just going.
I know you were.
So, what would be the title for a person responsible for business development in a law firm? So the answer was Director of Business Development, senior role, manage strategy, client targeting, partnerships, major pitches. Business Development Manager is the title. Typical scope, more hands-on, supports attorneys in bringing in clients, tracking opportunities, running events. Another title, Chief Business Development Officer, CBDO. At very large firms, sits at C-level suite, oversees firm-wide growth strategy. Client Development Manager, focused specifically on nurturing existing client relationships and cross-selling services. Marketing and Business Development Manager, in smaller firms, combines marketing efforts with business development, a dual hat role, right? Now, let me pause here. Did you notice how, even how they broke it down, that role is seen and portions of that role is seen in many titles and levels depending on the size of the company. And this was just a blow up on a legal company, right? So this is like very well defined and still complicated, right? It's like, oh man, but what am I going to pick, right? So regardless of what it is, yes, you know conceptually what it is, and I think you know more now than you knew at the beginning of the show. But now you think for my thing, for that role of that general manager at that company, is he doing strategy? Is he doing client targeting? Is he going after partnerships? Is he doing major pitches? Is he doing events, right? What is he doing? Or if you go even further, in that case, you have client development manager. Is he focused more specifically in nurturing an existing book of business, right? Some companies, and when you bring a relationship manager, you're handed, yes, you're handed, yes, you're handed a book of business. Sometimes in other companies, and I think we had someone that was going for a position for like a pharmaceutical sales rep or whatever, right? Those entry level positions, oftentimes they show you how to drum up your book of business, right? You might be, you might have a mentor, and he sort of, you shadow that mentor on the first few sits to get a company onboarded, right? You have a whole thing, but you're still doing business development and doing client relationship manager, et cetera, right? So the highest you go, when I think they had the chief business development officer, sometimes you have those positions also called as the growth officer, right? So he's basically translating the CEO's vision into, okay, I know the CEO wants to take us to Mars, right? But how can we grow? What kind of alliances I need to set to make sure that I get there, right? What person in my network I need to leverage, right? In what states. So I recall a couple companies ago, or consultant firms that I worked, that if they wanted to grow in the West Coast, right? Where were they hiring? Somebody in sales. Well, they were hiring somebody in the West Coast because they have already a book of relationships. So when people are brought in into sales in an organization, and you get the email from the CEO saying, announcing, I brought this person, this, that, and the other. If it's somebody focused in sales and business development, they're going to really highlight the level and depth of network that that person has had in the past, right? You can just see by how they describe. We're not bringing him because he knows how to design a website, which is also part of business development, right? You have to be seen to to get business. No, 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 no. We bringing him because of his black book. That's why we're bringing him, because he's able to make those connections. So it's not just about closing the deal, right? It is about to making sure that you are lubricating every handshake throughout your customer cycle, which is not a cycle, it's a relationship that, it should withstand the test of time, meaning it should survive whoever is performing that role in your company, meaning somebody else comes, you're able to keep your client, which is something you went through, right? You were able to keep your client. Why? Because you have non-poaching rules and things in place. Um, so I don't know if we'll be able to do a short with that. I think if glad to see other opinions about how you guys see what business development is, and how these roles are performed by multiple titles within an organization. And being a CEO, if your company is growing, if you're going from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, that you will need better operators, sometimes less builders. By design, you need to set that playbook. You need to set that diagram and see the responsibility of developing business, of drumming up business. This is going to be on my shoulders, the creator of the company, or am I already trying to get people that have that ability? And am I going to go for the strength of the relationships, or am I going to go for more tactical abilities? That decision, those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. At least that is my opinion, and I'm glad to hear other people's thoughts, and of course, including you, Wes. Obviously.
Good stuff.
So Wes has no thoughts on that.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know you were asking me for a. I thought you were like saying,
we don't have a live. It's not a live show, so I'm asking so people
Okay,
can
okay,
comment.
I got a question for you then. You also stated, and then bringing your black book. Is that unethical?
Hmm?
Is that unethical? I got a black book from a previous job I have. Built relationships, worked there 7 years, built a lot of relationships. Now I take it with me. Is it unethical to take it if you're in the same industry?
Oh, I love the question. Okay, is it unethical to take it? Um, I believe it is unethical. Unethical. I don't want to answer the ethics part of it honestly because context is everything, right? Context is everything. So I'll give you an example. You said, how long ago have you had this black book? Let's talk about the one you have.
Well, my black book, I've had it since I opened my company. All my
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying if somebody comes and uses those relationships to open a different business, your
Yeah,
relationship.
or go to a competitor.
Yeah. Well, it's not cool. I won't say that is unethical, but that's why, as a business owner, I'm not here to be a judge of what is ethical or not. I'm here to say to my younger self, essentially, now that you're starting, make sure that you are writing contracts and you're bringing people into your space, right? Knowing what they can take and what you're willing to allow them to take or whatever the law allows and be mindful and aware of that, right? Some things we won't be able to prevent, but what can you do? You can at least give yourself some time, right? You can have a gentleman's agreement and be very transparent and clear. This is what I'm accepting that would happen in case you leave, and this is what I'm not accepting. And be fair upfront, and you'll be fine. So I think that is a matter of design and setting what you want. Dr. Bruno, what's his name? Dr. Bruno Tucci, our attorney in Brazil for a consulting firm, he says you can do anything as long as you write it down and shake hands on it. Pretty much anything,
See,
anything.
yeah, I have a problem bringing that with taking it and going elsewhere. If it was a different industry, I don't necessarily find it unethical or improper. Like, let's say I'm selling plumbing and now I get into um, um, hiring, buying memberships for people to join the local swimming pool. Just totally different. I could still take that book of business, call those people and say, hey, would you like to join the swimming
Yeah.
pool, the club? But if you are developing these relationships on my dime to help me make money, I don't think you should be able to take that book of business. Those are my customers that I was paying you money to develop when you were under my umbrella. So I don't find it very ethical to take customers that I was paying you to develop while you were under my umbrella, because I was paying you good money to do that. And what's the reason for building a relationship? Is to make more money and have that lifelong or have a customer for a long period of time. That's my thoughts on it. Does that make sense?
It does. So this is a new question. So we'll put a poll. We'll put a poll on that. We'll try to work on a poll on that because I think it's worth a conversation and there are many ways to view it. Um, yeah, it's a great topic. Now, we're gonna move on to word on the street. Word on the street. Word on the street. Word on the street. Your prices are too high.
Okay.
That's what you said. That's what somebody told you. Who told you that?
Um, I've heard from a couple people.
You heard. You
Yeah.
don't need to tell names, customers, employees, or
Oh,
friends.
both. I heard from
Both from customers and
customers
employees.
complain. They're always going to complain about price.
Right.
So that there you can kind of take part of it as a part truth. But if we get pricing from other companies, have the opportunity to see pricing from other companies, and theirs is lower than mine, well, then I guess my prices are higher. Um, but the way I used to be the lowest, and then this brings up another ethical question down the road, but I'll get there.
Mhm.
Um, I used to have the lowest prices, but I knew what profit margin I wanted to make, and it's very conservative. It's not like I'm trying to gouge people or send my kid to college on one job. But what happened during the last 2 years?
I need a clarifying question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You said you knew exactly what profit margin you needed to make,
Well,
and
that
it
I
was
wanted to make
that you
after.
wanted to make. Hold on, but then you used the word that I want to clarify, and you said he was very conservative. What do you mean by that number was very conservative? Conservative.
Okay, so I try to make 15% profit.
Okay.
That's pretty conservative. There's other industries out there you're making 50% profit.
No, I understand. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's what you meant.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
that's
So
what I
meaning
meant by
it wasn't an egregious number. It wasn't 50% or anything. Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah,
understood.
yeah. So, but the way I used to be the lowest in the industry around here. But um but what happened over the last couple years through the Biden's administration, when inflation would go up and it would come on the news that inflation's up now to this, I raised my prices at that. I added that to my prices.
Why?
Well, if inflation is rising, everything costs more.
Wait. Let's stop. Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Why? How much time we have? Because I don't want to cut to the end. I don't want to. This is not a. I need to take my consulting, and we got to do something about this right now. And I know the solution hat off and put the listening hat on. Okay. So what you did was from what you heard exteriorly, and you said the inflation was going to go up, and you raised your prices. That's what you're
No,
saying.
the news came out on the news saying inflation is at this level at this time. Inflation is at this level at this time. Whatever it raised up, I raised my prices to match inflation. So I could still make my profit margin. My material costs have all went up. You know, uh, prices went up. So I raised mine in conjunction with those prices of inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for example, let's just pretend you could buy a water heater for $700, and all of a sudden they're raising their prices. Now it's 800, and I'm still doing it for the same price. Well, then who's going to eat that $100? The owner. That takes away from my net profit margin. So I raise my prices with inflation. And I felt that, am I the sharper tool in the box? That I'm on top of it and I raise it, and these other people didn't raise their prices, but they're not making the profit they're supposed to make either because of the fact they didn't raise them. Maybe they weren't paying attention, you know? So, but I try to stay on top of it. And I feel like I'm on top of it for what the inflation is pumping out for numbers, and I'm matching the numbers with inflation. But now it looks high because others didn't do it. But they were
Well, okay, so why don't you think that others didn't do it?
Because at one point we were all around the same, very competitive. And then inflation went up. For example, if a man wants to have a raise each year, for the people I have, it takes 3% to raise the wages. That's giving them $1 more an hour a year.
But I don't I appreciate you going into that, but you're going like way left field. Remember, we had this
Hear me
episode
out.
and we looked at that. Focus a little bit more, if you don't mind, for the listeners, because I
Yeah,
want to follow the thought process. Okay,
yeah.
I don't have an agenda on this one.
Fair enough.
I took my agenda head off. I'm like thinking of
Listening
the
hat.
listener. So you raised the prices based on what the news said. Inflation went up by 10%. You raised by 10%. How many times did you raise your prices, Wes?
I
In the last
raised
six
it
months, how many times did you raise your prices in the last 6 months?
once.
Once, just once. By how much percent?
Uh, I think it was by 3%.
Okay. You raise across the board
Yeah.
one time. So, okay. In the
But over
last,
about the last year and a half, we raised it 3 other times.
how much the time before the 3%?
Uh, I think it was six.
Wow. So you said you raised six and then you raised three on top of that, and you
Yeah,
said one more time. How much did you raise one more time
the
of that
three
previous
percent,
3%?
and
So
then there was one other time,
how much was that? Jesus.
six. And so it's 18% total.
No, it wasn't. Depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. What is the main question I'm gonna ask you now? Because you did six, you did three, you did six, you did three, and you did three again.
No, four times, a
Four
total of
times.
18%.
Yeah. Six, three, six, and three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way I came up with those numbers was inflation ran 12, went up 12%. Inflation went up 12% over this period of time. I mean, when the Biden came into office, the inflation went out of whack up to 12%. And then my people wanted a raise, which is a 3% raise. But when you raise their wages, let's say giving them $1 an hour, unemployment goes up at the same time, another 3%. That's why I went to 18%.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What unemployment? Wait, how did we get to unemployment now?
Unemployment.
Yeah.
When you raise your wage, you pay your unemployment upon your what you're paying your men.
Oh, 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 sorry. So for clarification, you're talking about the unemployment taxes that each state has.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I was just keeping up with what was happening. I mean, a lot of people I know they're like, right, man, you can't seem to turn a buck. Well, because you didn't raise your prices to come to follow inflation. And yeah, it's high for everyone. So are eggs.
So from word on the street, my prices are too high. You explained that your prices did go up and then that your competitors did not raise the prices as aggressively or at all. I don't know how many competitors you're saying. And you said, just to confirm, that in the last 18 months or more, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, I'd say about 3 years.
3 years. So in the last 36 months, so 3 years, you have raised your prices first 6%. So, and you're really talking about your base hour, right? Your hourly base,
Yeah.
your labor hour. Okay. So now for the final clarification, this is going to be important to understand from a numbers perspective. Let's just pretend that your hourly rate 3 years ago was $100. We have a flat
Easy
number.
enough.
Easy enough. So 3 years ago, you raised that to $106, correct?
That's not 6%.
No?
No.
Well, okay.
So let's start over. Let me do the calculation real quick.
Careful, because we're gonna keep that in the recording. We are recording right now.
I understand that.
Okay.
So one, uh,
Keegan, put Wes on the big camera. Put him on the big one. Put him on the big one. I'm gonna take myself out of the camera. So you started with $100. You increased your base rate by 6%, and I'm saying that it's gonna be $106.
right. That's not a true 6%.
Oh, so what is a true 6%?
I'm trying to figure that out right now.
Okay.
So we got, point,
Am I high?
you're low.
I'm low.
How do I get that now? I'm trying to figure out how do I get that.
How are we doing with time? We got my viewers were I think I'm gonna let this I'm gonna let this run until exactly 10 a.m. And if we don't get to a resolution, it's gonna be the first ever cliffhanger from the CEO's Grind podcast with Jay and Wes.
Yeah. Um, so let me try one other thing real quick. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Bear with me. I'll get it. All right.
Keegan, would you mind putting some music on? Let's test Riverside. This Riverside tool you're using, I think there's some music that you can put in the background. And you're basically gonna say like we're waiting, and that's so
No,
I
stop
want
it.
it. I want it.
Okay. All right. And we
Take your time. This is supposed to be fun. And I'm having my fun. Monday, I did not expect to wake up on a Monday like this. This is awesome.
for some reason I don't understand why. For some reason I can't figure. It's the numbers aren't working, but
Ta-da! Is it?
it's I believe it's $16. $16.
All right. So that first price increase that happened 3 years ago, we established the base rate was 100 and you increased by 6%. So your new price went to 116, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you got another 3%. Let's just call it 12 months later.
Yeah.
So what did your price go to?
I'm it's not working out right now. I don't know why I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but See, this is what I do. I sit and play with this stuff and figure this stuff out, but it sometimes takes me some time.
Okay.
Uh,
So I think what we should do, we should leave that question into the chat, and we're gonna say basically this. Wesley had his base rate, his base labor rate that he charged his clients 3 years ago was $100. He came at 100. At that time, he saw in the news that inflation was increasing, so he increased that by 6%. Then 12 months later, he increased by 3%. Then another 6 months later, he increased by 6%. And now, today, completing the 3 years, he increased by 3%. What is his hourly rate and what was the effective percentage increase in his hourly rate? He will come back with the answer on our next episode, and I would love to see an answer on the chat. And we'll also post that on our newly published website for the podcast itself. So this episode, including the poll, is going to be there. So if you want access to our website, it's very simple. It's ceosgrind.com. And the YouTube channel is the same thing at CEOs Grind. Um, and this was our Monday podcast. We talked about a lot of stuff, and this poll I think is the nicest one so far. And one little announcement: I did post on our channel a video on our starting a partnership, our consulting firm in Brazil, Catalyst Win, starting a partnership with the CBVA, which is an organization of adapted volleyball. I mentioned to you, Wes, that my dad, travels Brazil, also playing this adapted volleyball that is a little easier on the joints and it's super communal, and you play for your city and then you go and you play in different cities, right? So after the retirement is like a dream. Um, and they approached us to help bring this sport to the US and Mexico. So we're starting this partnership right now. We'll be in Brazil from July 9th to July 13th, supporting and helping them out with their Super America. What is it? Super League of the Americas for adapted volleyball. And he has many age groups, right? So it's like above 48 and then above 58, above 68, above 80, right? And these folks are out there, playing and exercising and having fun and hoisting trophies and doing all kinds of things. So I did a little promo video in Portuguese and I posted to our podcast so folks can start familiarizing themselves with this effort that it was interesting when you asked, like, oh, you're going to start taking people to Brazil. I will not be taking people, but I certainly would invite anyone to go visit. And if you can use it to even be active and take sort of take part of something that helps humans in general live a better life after they have already been on the grind their entire lives, I think it's a great cause. And that's why I'm attaching myself and the company and sort of our brand to this cause. So I'm happy to do it. And I think that even you, Leslie, can still go back to becoming an athlete again.
do I wear a Speedo?
You could if you wanted, if you were doing the beach, yes. Well, Wes, thank you so much. This is a great Monday. I appreciate the episode. I appreciate the back and forth.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You guys take care. And to all our guests, bring in questions. Let's talk about them. It'd be a lot of fun.